Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday to each and every one of you. I hope that you are ready to jump into this word on today. Y'all, I am so excited. We've got a word because I realized God was ministering to me first thing this morning. As he was talking to me and ministering to me, he began to just dialogue with me in Holy Spirit about these things that the world can attract us to do, tempt us to do, not realizing, hey there, Daddy, that oftentimes, Luana, is a trap. It's a trap. And I want to talk about those things this morning. If you don't mind, let's come on in here. Let's get into this word. Luana, I was studying and God gave me this message. I said, God, as I was going through my title and looking at it, he said, Tab, I want you to tell the people, don't cheat the system. Andre, learn how to beat the system. I said, God, he said, a lot of people are looking at you. A lot of people are trying to figure out Mr. Brogdon, Daddy. They're trying to figure you out. They're trying to figure out you out, Andre and Luana. They're trying to figure out what is it that you've done. How are you where you at while you today? How do you have the car that you drive? How are you working the job that you're working? How are you able to afford the lifestyle that you live? And they're trying to really determine, did you cheat the system? Now, I want to take you a little down a journey, if you don't mind. I want to take you down this journey. And if you don't mind, oh, you love the background. Girl, we doing something different today, Luana. We trying something different. Broderick, classmate, I want to take you down this journey because I don't want you to think that whole cheating the system. I don't want us to get uppity today. I want us to really come down and say, you know what? It's quite easy to cheat the system. It really is. And I know you're saying, Tab, but what type of systems are you talking about? Well, I began to journey. My mind went back to gamers. Every now and then I would watch my sons when they were in the house and they had their things and they was gaming, they was gaming. And I'm not saying they was cheating the system, but I remember hearing in the recollection of my mind, somebody talking about cheat codes. And I said, well, what are cheat codes? Why would you need a cheat code? The cheat code helps you, Mother Carolyn, to know how to rig the system, to know how to milk the system, to play the system, to work around the rule or the procedure so that you can bend the rule just a little bit so that you can get this desired outcome. And I began to look at that thing. And I remember as I was saying, well, why don't y'all just study and learn how to play the game right? And it was like, mama, go on there, just shoot me a little bit with. I said, well, I don't understand. They cheating the system. But then God began to work with me on this concept. And he said, Tab, I want you to journey back. Cheating the system, bending the rules, manipulating and playing the thing a little bit differently is not something that's new. And it's not something that's foreign to Christians. Oh, I'm not talking about any of you that are watching, just maybe some folks that y'all may know around the way. I remember back in school, you ever remember back in school where every now and then, Mother Jerry, somebody would try to cheat the system? Oh, I couldn't help but pull out, y'all. I keep everything. I pulled out my senior book. I was a mighty Viking of Maywood High School. Yes, I was, honey. And as I was studying this thing, I couldn't help but remember there's this little slip of paper. I don't know if y'all can see it. Let me get up in there. This slip of paper, torn out piece of notebook paper. And it had a line 1, 2, line 3, line. And I wrote this note on it. And this note, his name was Michael. It was in 1992 because I wrote the date beside it. I ain't going to tell his last name. But Michael had sent me this note in class. He passed it along the way. And he said, could you give me the answers to the questions for 1 through 3? It was Mr. Palmer's test, the science test. And I remember laughing when I got this note because I said, I know he asking me for all of the answers for all of the questions on the test. Michael didn't ever want to study. Michael didn't want to put in the work. He was trying to cheat the system. But then as I began to think about this thing, I was laughing, in my spirit. I began to think about in the job that I work at. I remember one time at the job, they said, y'all, we're going to have to lock down the school supplies and we're going to have to lock down the office supplies. And I said, well, why are you locking down the office supplies? For what? They said, well, school time is coming. And some of y'all, just look forward. Anna, just look forward, cousin. And because during school time, and during the month of June and July, when they was getting ready for the school doors to open back in August, is something that would happen. It seems like the highlighters would simply disappear. It seems like the pens and the composition notebooks would disappear out of the supply box. And what they determined is that the employees were shopping the shelves at work for their children's school supplies. Oh, I know you know Tab did that. No, I know it didn't happen where you worked at. I'm just telling you what I've observed. I'm telling you what I'm familiar with, Denise. I'm just telling you some things of how people oftentimes cheat the system so we don't get judgmental, because every now and then we might have borrowed. Now, I bought this one from Walmart. Don't y'all judge me. But every now and then I've known some people that borrowed some school supplies from the job so that they didn't have to create that whole list and take it to the Target and the Walmart. I'm just talking about how people beat the system. And then I begin to think about all the times back in the day. Oh, back in the day, I was at a restaurant about a month ago, and we was at this restaurant, and I saw this girl that was sitting at a table across from me. Oh, her outfit was the bomb.com, baby. And I was looking at it, and then as I began to look a bit closer, I said, well, that's a whole tag hanging out the back of her dress. And, you know, I began to laugh and say, oh, my God, she got the tag on the thing. And then Holy Spirit arrested me. He said, oh, Tab, don't forget the time that you went to the store and you picked out the outfit back in the day. And you knew that, okay, I'm going to wear this outfit right here, but I know I'm taking it back. I'm just borrowing it. Y'all, come on now. And I'm just borrowing it. So I was very careful. When I wore this outfit, I made sure that I didn't put any makeup around the neckline. When I wore the outfit, I made sure that I didn't spray any perfume on it. When I wore this outfit, I was very careful about who I allowed to get close to me, because you can't spill nothing on this outfit because this outfit is going back to the store. I'm just talking about how different ways people beat the system. I ain't judging nobody. I'm going somewhere with this morning. I promise you all. I am. I'm talking about the different ways that people manipulate, and they kind of work around the rules or the procedures. And oh, y'all know we coming into income tax time. Oh, this is the W-2. Y'all know how some individuals beat the system. They beat the system, and they're looking for, how can I change some numbers so I can get a little bit more? I ain't judging nobody. I'm just telling you how it looks like in 2024. You know, sometimes they look and they say, well, I got this thing right here, and I know I only got, one dependent, but is there a child out there that I can borrow in return? Is there a child out there? Wait a minute, can I start an LLC? Again, maybe write off some things as a business credit. You ain't worked the business at all, but you got that whole LLC so you can write. I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about some things that I know, some things that I've heard, Denise, along the way. And if we're not careful, what happens is the world conditions us to learn how to beat the system. Oh, Brother Ralph, if the world shows us how to work around the rules, how to bend them every now and then, how to manipulate things so that we can have a desired outcome. And I began to look at the common practice that this became. It became a common practice. And I know you're asking, well, how, Tab? How, Tab? It became so common. I told you that it went from us chastising the children of, did the teacher really call to say that you were cheating on a test, to, as parents, us borrowing, which is still called stealing from work, to give you the supplies to take the test with. Common practice, to the point in human resources we had to put a pad and lock and key on the supply office room. Oh, it became a common practice where it wasn't just a thing of, let me get the outfit so that I can make sure that I look okay and make sure that I don't get anything on it so that I can return it. But this thing of borrowing and returning, of taking something that wasn't yours in the hopes of giving it back and that no one would be able to understand it. I don't know why the Holy Spirit took me into relationships. I said, relationships, God? He said, the borrow and return of the relationship. The borrow of, I know you're married and I know you got a boo thing, but come on over here. And for those of you who don't know, get the children out the room, because we're going to talk about it on this morning. The borrowing of the man and the borrowing of the woman that wasn't really yours. And that same practice took place. You didn't want to get no perfume or makeup on it, and you couldn't get no perfume or makeup on him. You wanted to make sure that you didn't get a mark on the outfit, and you better not leave a mark or passion mark on the neck. Oh, you wanted to make sure that you didn't have any deodorant. Can I talk about it? You didn't want to have any deodorant on it. You didn't want to have any perfume on it. So after you got done doing what you needed to do before you sent him or her off, you couldn't wash with soap. Oh, baby, don't you return home smelling like no Dove and like no oil of Olay. You better get some hot water and a clean rag and wipe off and go on about your business. Can we just talk about it this morning? I'm telling you what I know, that I know. It becomes a common practice to just borrow and return something that's not yours, cheating the system, if you will. Oh, if we go a little bit further, this borrowing borrowing during the tax season, a borrowing, can I get a dependent over here? And there's some requirements that goes behind this, but we don't even think about the impact or the requirements that go and the issues and the things that happen when we cheat the system. Oh, but I began to look at this thing. I said, God, why do people cheat the system? Why do we cheat the system? And I wanted to be able to say this, Brother Anthony, from a spirit of saying, you know what, I've never cheated the system. But the truth of the matter is, I did buy this highlighter, but I can recall back in the day when I didn't buy the I borrowed it out the cabinet. The truth of the matter is, the reason I still got this note from Michael and from a senior book is because I laughed, but because I knew Michael was, one of those people that just wasn't going to study. But Michael was my friend. So I did give him answer 1, 2, 3, and I slipped it on to him. And my thing was, now if I get caught, you going down, we going down together. The truth of the matter is, if I can tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, I can tell you that I bought the outfit. I remember I was wearing the outfit one time, and my girlfriend walked up on me and she said, "Oh, girl, that's cute." And you know how they have the little plastic, this one has a cloth one. Let me get up in here so y'all can see some of the tricks of the trade. This one is cloth, but see, back in the day, in some of these outfits, they have the little plastic one, right? And my girlfriend walked up on me. She said, "Girl, you're plastic." And she popped it. And I said, "Girl, why you pop my outfit? I got to take this back to the store." I remember back in the day when I said, "Well, you know what? Let's look at these numbers." Now, I know I got all my dependents, but, how can you get me the most out of this return? I remember back in the day when I used to try to cheat the system. And I said, God, why? Why do we cheat the system? Have we ever equivalated it to the fact that at the end of the day, we're not just manipulating something. We're not just bending a rule, but at the end of the day, we're breaking some type of covenant, some type of contract. It's a lawlessness that we have. And I said, God, why do you have me looking at this thing on this morning? And he said, Tab, we're going to go a little bit deeper because I want my children to understand that there comes a point in time when you just get tired of cheating the system. You get tired of trying to run tricks and run game, and you just want to own what you own, and you just want to be able to say, I am who I am, and you want to be confident in what you got. You get tired of cheating the system. Oh, as I begin to look at this thing right here, let me get this earring up off of me. I begin to look at and evaluate the impact. All the while I begin to evaluate the impact. I remember, I said, it becomes such a common practice and we don't realize it. We don't realize it. I remember academically, you think about it and it seems so harmless. It just seems so harmless, passing the answers to the test to Michael so that he could, get his grade and be able to pass it. But I said, God, that's not the only test that I took in life. I remember, Lawana, when I was pregnant with my first child, and Alex laid the long way. He was just, I was out there, you wouldn't know I was pregnant from here, but I turned to the side and it was like, whoo. Alex laid the long way to the point that I didn't have a driver's license at that time. And I went to the DMV. I'm going somewhere this morning to get my driver's license, and I had to take the written exam. No worries, took the written exam. I'm good to go. And then they said, well, Ms. Brogdon, we need you to now get in the car so that you can take the driver's test. And I said, okay. So we did the driver's test. We drive and I'm good, I'm moving, I'm going. And then we got back to the DMV, to the parking lot. And he said, now this last part I need you to do, Brother Kevin. He said, I need you to back up. And I said, back the car up? He said, I need you to back the car up. Now what he didn't know that I knew is that I had been practicing this part of the testing thing over and over again, and I didn't know how to back up straight. Y'all, I would back up and then my car would be going all over here. I'd be trying to look like this and I'd be all on the sidewalk. I said, God, I don't know how to back up. And I began to think quick on my feet because it was Tanya common nature to know how to bend the rules. So I said, well, sir, I said, my stomach, when I try to turn so that I can look to back up, it rubs up against the steering wheel. As I got my finger on the button moving to the steering wheel, I said, so I know how to do it, But it's uncomfortable. He said, well, you know what? It's all right. And he passed me on that test. Can I tell you, later on in life, I remember being in a situation where I was driving down a dark road. And I'm driving down this dark road. I'm trying to find somebody's house. And I'm like, I think I done made the wrong turn. And as I get down this road, I realize, Anthony, that I can't drive up. I was the neighborhood. I'm like, I done made the wrong turn. I'm not driving and backing up into nobody's garage and driveway to U-turn. And then I saw some people started coming out, and I said, that I am in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. And I said, I got to get up out of here. And the only result that I could do is back up. And I'm like, God, and it came to me in that moment. I said, God, I don't know how to back up now. I'm 10 plus years a driver, but because I manipulated the system, all I could say is, God, ooh, I hate that I cheated that part of the test, but could you just help me to back up to get out of this place of danger? You see, there was a purpose for the test. I'm going somewhere. And I wonder how many tests along the way have we manipulated, and how many tests have we bent the rules just a little bit, not understanding that it could have an impact in an emergency situation. Or if I go a little bit further, I thought about, like I told you, that outfit of, you get the outfit and you make sure don't get nothing on it, don't spray nothing on it, don't wear nothing on your arm, don't put no deodorant, because you don't want to have the inability to return it back, because you know that it's not yours. And as I began to do this little research, family, I'm a little OCD. My family will tell you she a little bit OCD. And I remember looking at this article that said, people are returning outfits. It's going to help somebody along the way that others have worn. And they put out this thing that you got to be careful, because scabies passes through clothing that's been on somebody's body. Fungal infections pass through clothing that has already been on somebody's body. Warts pass through clothing that has already been on somebody's body. And I said, ooh, and I began to say, God, I thank you for the time that you kept me and protected my skin, my outer coat, Lord, because I might have wore something, I might have bought something. So now to this day, when I buy something, baby, I take it and drop it in the washing machine, because I don't know who else may have tried it on, who may have borrowed and returned it. So now that I know that there's something that can pass through the outer layer, I'm more mindful, and I definitely don't want to do that to anybody else. But then God said, now let's look at this borrowing of, can I borrow your husband? Can I borrow your wife for just a minute? He said, Tab, do you understand? Because this common practice takes place that people don't consider until it's too late, or till they get caught, or somebody snaps the tag or snaps the little plastic off of what was holding them on so that they could stay undercover. He said, do you know that STTs pass through skin contact? He said, do you know that BV, body vaginal discharge, passes through skin contact? Oh, we're going to talk about it. It's grown folks' conversation on today. He said, do you understand that yeast infections pass through skin contact? So you may have borrowed and returned, but you returned them with something other than just the clothing. Oh, I said, God, this common practice of beating the system, we don't even consider the impact and the danger of manipulating and bending the rules, even down to covenants of relationship and marriage. I begin to look at this thing called taxes, and I said, God, I get the taxes, and I understand that every now and then people are like, I need a dependent, I need a niece, I need a nephew, I need a grandchild that I can, write off in the taxes. The IRS said it's okay. It's okay that you do this. But the IRS says that there is a test or a requirement. If you look it up, I'm just trying to help somebody along the way, so that you will be able to claim a dependent that's not your own on the taxes. It's this tax requirement. It's this tax test, they call it, where the child, number one, has to be related to you in some form or fashion. Check. And they have to be of a certain age, underneath a certain age, so that you can claim them as a dependent, even if they're not your child. Check. And here's where it gets tricky. You got to be able to show that you've provided support for this child. People know how to work the numbers. Check. And then they say you also had to be able to show that you've provided residency for this child, this dependent, this niece, this nephew, this grandchild, that you borrowed to do your taxes for at least half of the year. And that's where people will say, you know what, well, we can just say, you know how, we'll just say that they was at my house, and they came and stayed the night every night. The conversation, get a little hush, we'll just work it like this. And when I get it, I'll give you half. I'll cut you off something, because you can't claim, but so many, we work it out. It's become this common nature. And they don't consider that I've been audited and I didn't manipulate. I had enough children. I had to borrow nobody else's. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah, Jesus. But I'll tell you, I've been through a tax audit before. I've had someone that prepared my taxes and they weren't on the up and up. And I found out after the audit came because I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, is this what you said it is? I'm trusting their professionalism. I'm trusting their integrity. I'm trusting that they're honest. So I just signed off on it. And it wasn't until the audit came. And the audit came and they said, well, Miss Brogdon, when we looked at this number compared to this number, there was something that didn't line up. And now there's this thing called a penalty. And now this thing called a fine that you got to pay. And I said, well, what do you mean that I got to pay the penalty and I got to pay the fine? I don't understand. And they said, well, you're responsible for knowing. And even though that you don't know, ignorance is knowing an exception of not being able to say that you didn't follow the law. And I'm like, God, where are we going with this thing this morning? He said, I want to tell you, there's some people that are dealing with some penalties right now. Let me bring this thing to you. It's some people that are dealing with some audits right now, and they're trying to figure out, God, why am I dealing with this? He said, because I want you to do a quick review of your practices. I want you to look at this thing called the world's system. You see, the world system will have you rigging stuff. And the world system will have you milking stuff like a gamer. The world system will have you playing and bending the rules or the procedures so that you can get this desired outcome, just like a gamer. A world system will say, give me the cheat codes. How do I get around this? And how do I work around this? And how do I get more out of it? And how do I make sure I don't have to pay the penalty of it? And how do I pass even though I hadn't studied? And how do I borrow even though it's not mine? How do I do this, Candy Love? How do I do it? The world system will make you think that it's okay to be lawless. But I found myself in the book of James. And not James, John, First John, chapter number 3. And I was reading this text and I said, God, why do you have this thing on my mind? He said, because there's some people out there that I need you to encourage. I need you to encourage some people out there because they used to cheat the system. And they can tell you that, Tab, there were some benefits that I received when I cheated the system. But then something happened along the way. I might have got caught. I might have got the STD. I might have got the fine. I might have got the penalty. I might have got convicted in my soul and in my spirit. So now I'm trying to live the right way. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to follow the rules. I'm trying to be above board. But Tab, I'm trying to understand, is it worth it? Oh, when I looked at this thing, I said, God, as I begin to look at this thing, it's just one little highlighter. Is it worth it? You're just trying to help somebody to get a little bit further. Is it worth it? I said, well, God, it's just one little outfit. They're going to write off something. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And I found myself in 1 John chapter number 3. It's chapter number 3, verse 4. And it says this verse, it says, whoever commits sin also commits lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. Dorothy, I began to look at this thing and I said, I remember when I was going through catechism, I had to go through this whole testing, sitting before a panel of bishops and pastors and preachers. And I was trying to get ordained and I had studied. And I remember sitting in the room with like 12 plus people having to answer questions. And one of the questions was, what is sin? And I said, well, sin, according to the word of the Lord in 1 John, is defined as lawlessness. They were shooting questions back and forth. And I said, sin is lawlessness. And I know we've heard people say, well, don't sin and sin not and make sure that you're free of sin. But do they really understand what sin is? Sin is simply defined as lawlessness. I began to read this thing a little bit further because I said, God, where are we going with this thing when you're saying don't cheat the system, beat the system? He said, let's go a little bit further. He says, and you know that he was manifested, talking about Jesus, to take away your sins. And in him there is no sin. Verse 6, it says, whoever abides in him does not sin. Whoever sins has neither seen him nor known him. And I said, God, what does that mean? Because you said in your word that every single day we sin. So it seems like it's impossible to follow this scripture. It says whoever abides in Jesus doesn't sin. But there's a place in the Bible that says we sinned every day, and that's why you give us new mercy. God, I'm a little bit confused. And God said, it's not saying that you don't sin. I want to help somebody this morning. He's saying what I'm asking you to do is not practice this habitual thing of sinning. It's not get to the place where you're so comfortable breaking the law. You're so comfortable bending the rules. You're so comfortable borrowing what's not yours. You're so comfortable telling a little white lie. You're so comfortable manipulating and doing these things that you know at the end of the day in my eyesight are sinful. And I began to look at this thing and I said, God, and he goes a little bit further in verse number 7. He says, little children, let no one deceive you. He who practices righteousness is righteous, just as he is righteous. Verse number 8, he who sins is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose, the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. I began to look at this thing. And I said, God, he said, there's somebody right now that's trying to live right. They ain't perfect, but Pastor Tab, they just trying to do the right thing. There's somebody that's listening on today. They're trying. They know they had a habit of manipulating and bending and twisting and turning it just a little bit. And at the end of the day, it was still a sin. A little twist was still a twist. A little lie was still a lie. A little borrow was still a take. A little manipulation was still manipulation. He said, at the end of the day, there's somebody, Sister Denise, that's really, really trying. And they're saying, God, how do I beat this thing? And he said, well, if you want to know how to beat it, if you want to know how to really enjoy the beauty of beating it, he said that you've got to come to this place where you understand it's only a test. It's really only a test. And I said, God, can you give me some scripture? He said, well, let's go. I'm going to take you back to where we were a couple of weeks ago. He said, let's go to the book of James. Let's go talk to James, who was the oldest half brother of Jesus the Christ. If you remember, it's in James, it's in chapter number 1, where it says, verse number 2, my brethren, count it all joy. We talked about this a few weeks ago. When you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces this thing called patience. And you guys know that there's also a scripture in the same book of James that says faith without works is dead. And I said, God, I hear it, that the testing of our faith produces patience, and faith without works is dead. I said, God, what are you saying to me? He said, if you want to be in position, he said, I want you to tell the children, I want you to tell my sons and my daughters, I want you to tell my kings and my queens, I want you to tell the ones that said, I'm trying to stop being the tricker of the world, I'm trying to stop living in this age where you just do things that you know aren't right. He said, I want you to tell them that I want them to be able to beat the system. And how, Sister Yvette, do you beat the system? He said, well, the first thing that you do is you got to put in the work. I said, God, what do you mean? He said, I told you, you can be leaning. Faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. He said, you got to be willing to put in the work. And I said, well, God, can you give me an example? He said, let's go back to this example when Michael asked you, Tab, can you give me the answer to question 1 through 3 on the test when y'all were in high school and you slid them the answers to the test? He said, let's go back to that time, Tab. He said, let's go back not only to that time, but let's go back to the time when you were trying to drive the car. You were driving the car and you knew at the end of the day that you didn't know how to back up and drive. He said, at the end of the day, if you want to be able to do it, you got to be willing to put in the work. See, I don't want you to think that because you were able to beat the system back then, because you were able to get somebody to give you the answers to the test, that test time isn't coming back around. Testing gives you this ability to stand in the face of the enemy and say, no, I didn't try to trick the system. I didn't try to cheat the system. I didn't try to manipulate the system. Baby, I beat the system because I put in the work. I want to know, is there anybody out there that's listening that can say, Tab, I put in the work. I put in the work so I didn't have to look on nobody else's paper. I put in the work so I can learn how to do this thing by myself. myself in the case of an emergency. I put in the work so that when the devil said, well, you know, maybe you didn't deserve it, and I don't know why you drive. No, I put in the work to live the way that I live. I put in the work to drive the way I drive. I put in the work to be able to dress the way that I dress. I put in the work to be able to stand and smile when I feel like crying. I put in the work to know how to lay and practice some prayers so that when times of trouble came, I knew how to call on God and not call on the problems. I put in the work. Is there anybody that can say, I put in the work? Oh, baby, when you get to this place where you're not cheating the system, but you're beating the system, you can stand boldly before the throne of grace and say, the reason I beat the system is because I put in the work. Oh, I put in the work. I want to give you 3 things of how do you beat the system? How do you stand confidently and not arrogantly and say, baby, I beat the system. I put in the work. Number 1, let me give you number 2. Number two, I said, God, I hear you saying that this faith produces this thing called patience. And that faith without works is dead, all from the book of James. I said, God, help me to pull these things together. He said, well, when you beat the system, you have this thing called patience. And patience, according to the word of the Lord, produces a perfect work. And I said, God, help me to get this thing right here. He said, let's go back to the outfit, Pastor Tab. He said, you know, people want to look nice and they want to put on this outer garment that they haven't really put in the work to be able to afford. But then there's something, hey there, Sister Mandy, where people don't have the patience to say, let me save my coins so that when I buy this from the store, I don't have to wear it and not be able to enjoy the pleasure of it, the earrings, the jewelry, the makeup, the perfume, the deodorant. I can enjoy it knowing that when I take it off, I'm going to put it in the dry cleaner. I'm going to wash it. I'm not trying to wear it so that I can, oh, okay, now let me make sure so I can take this thing back to the store, you know, and I want to, so they'll think that, you know, it just didn't fit. Knowing you don't want to all fit. Oh, night long. He said, when you get to this point, Richard, where you say, wait a minute, I've got patience. You learn how to be patient and wait until you can afford it. You don't do the borrow in return. And I said, God, but wait a minute, you took this outfit and you went from there of all of the things that transmit from wearing an outfit. I told you I really am OCD, the body warts and the fungal infections and the scabies that can transfer off of our skin because you've turned something back in that you actually wore. He said, baby, when you have patience and you wait for the man that I sent you, when you have patience and you wait for the queen that I've sent you, you don't have to worry if they're loyal to you and you're loyal to them. When you have this thing called intimacy, you're not worrying, are they going to give me herpes? You're not worrying, are they going to give me HIV? You're not worrying if they're going to give me chlamydia. You're not worrying if I'm going to get a yeast infection. You're not worrying if they've been slipping around and sleeping around. You're not trying to smell their clothes and does it smell like Calgon? Does it smell like oil Olay? Does it smell like somebody's perfume, a fragrance that I don't even wear? You're not worrying, trying to determine had they been stepping out. You're not worried because you put in some things called patience. And this patience allows you to say, God, wait a minute, I'm going to wait for what's mine. And when I get what's mine, when I get who's mine, they know that I belong to him and he belongs to me. She knows, the brothers can say that she knows that she's my queen and she knows that I'm her king. And there's no interest, there's no desire to step out because I was patiently waiting. Oh God, if you want to be able to beat the system and not cheat the system. See, the cheating of the system will cause you to borrow and return. It'll be clothing today. It'll be somebody's loved one tomorrow. Borrowing and returning back to them after you've vacationed with them around the world. Borrowing and returning back to them after you've slept with them all night long. Borrowing and returning back to them what was not yours. God says if you want to know how to beat the system, these are just examples. He said you got to learn to have this thing called patience. Oh, if I go a little bit further, he says you don't want to cheat the system no more. And you want to be able to boldly stand in the face of the devil and say, no, I didn't beat it. Oh, I beat it. I didn't cheat it. I've learned how to put in the work. And not only have I learned how to put in the work, I've learned how to be patient. And I said, well, God, you said it was 3 things that you were going to give me examples of. What is the 3rd thing? And he says, you get to this point where you just realize it does not please me when you manipulate the system. And I said, Victoria, oh my God, what do you say? He said, it simply does not please me. It's as lawlessness. It is a sin. He said, let's go on to these numbers, these taxes, these W-2s. He's got to file it by this date in April. He said, it does not please me. You get to this place where you don't want to beat the system and not cheat the system, because you realize when you cheat the system, it simply does not please God. It simply does not bring honor to him. It doesn't allow him to sit down in the heavens on the right hand of the Father and say, yeah, that's my son and that's my daughter. He gets no glory when we manipulate and when we cheated. He gets no glory when we scheme the numbers and we lie. He said, I just simply don't like it. He said, and when you become a person that knows how to beat the system, you become a child of integrity. Oh, I want to ask you this question this morning. I know you probably hadn't been asked this question in quite some time, but do you have integrity? See, if you want to be able to survive this world and not be of this world, you got to have integrity. If you want to be the person that can look in the face of the devil and say, you have nothing to hold over my head, you have integrity. If you want to be able to be the person that says, you know what, if I owe this year, then I owe. If I get something back, I get something back because I have integrity. I'm not going to ask if you can come give me a call because I see that wedding ring on your hand because I have integrity. I'm not asking you to give me the answers to a test that I should be able to pass myself because I have integrity. I put in the work because I have integrity. I'm patient. That's why I have integrity. I'm willing to wait on the Lord. I have integrity. I'm willing to let it be and the chips fall where they may because I have integrity. I'm not going to allow the devil to put me in a place and in a position where I am as sin, a worker of the enemy, a worker of Satan, doing the things of this world because I don't understand the word integrity. Oh, I want to ask you this morning, do you have any integrity? Do you know how to be able to go through it without letting it take you through? Do you know how to be able to stand even when you feel like falling? Do you know how to be able to wipe the tears even while they're crying and say, it's going to be all right? Sometimes you got to encourage yourself. It's going to be all right. God, I know what the devil's trying to do. He's trying to tell me, you're going to fail. This is the end. You're not going to survive. But no, with integrity, I say it's going to be all right. God, I know you got me. God, I know you didn't leave me. God, I know you won't forsake me. God, I know you reign on the just and the unjust. So it ain't that I did something wrong. It's finally because I've done something right. I've stopped cheating the system. I've stopped manipulating. I've stopped bending the rules. I'm trying my best. And every day I know I sin, but I'm not making it a habitual practice. I'm not constantly doing something that I know doesn't bring you glory. I'm not constantly living in a way that I know doesn't bring you honor. God, I'm doing the best that I know how to do. I'm trying to live a life of integrity. And because of that, I can stand in the face of the enemy and say, I beat your system. I beat your system of lying. I beat your system of division. I beat your system of lawlessness. I beat your system of trying to make me your puppet to do what you want me to do because times get a little bit of tight. That to move the way you want me to move because I feel a little lonely, to move and dance underneath your strings because I feel a little desperate. I am not of this world. Whew. So I'm not trying to cheat a system. I've come to beat the system. Oh, I tell you, I will leave you with this. I went out to eat a couple of weeks ago. Was out to eat, and we were at this table. It was a bunch of us. It was some preachers and some teachers and some church folks. We were just sitting there, and it pains me to say this, but you know, I wasn't gonna share it. I said I ain't gonna share no names, but God, He said, no, you gonna, because some people will get judgmental, and see, they'll be judging little Michael Durant. Oh Lord, I told a boy named Michael, I love you, son. But they'll be judging little Michael that asked for the answers to the test. You know, he should have known better. He should have studied. And then they'll be judging the little girl that was sitting up in the restaurant, Mother Rachel, that had the tag and a thing. What's she doing out there? Because I got convicted. He said, you laughing, don't forget, back in your 20s, back in your 30s, you used to do the same thing too. Go over there and gently go behind her back. And I said, baby, your tag is hanging out. And I tucked it inside of her dress and walked away. He said, He said, because what will happen is you'll get this sense of arrogance, pride, and think that you're not too far removed from some things, those little things that I look at and say, that lacked integrity was at this restaurant that ordered all of this food. The waiter came. He had served us, with a spirit of excellence. Every time we needed something, he was right there. Came to check on us throughout the meal. Something wasn't right. He said, I got it. I'll take it back. He served us with excellence. And we began to get ready to leave. And he came and he was passing each person their bill. And we noticed, God allowed me to see it, whole table didn't see it, that one person did not get a bill. And that person said, am I on your ticket? To the person to their right. And they said, no. And they looked to the person, am I on your ticket? No. He must have forgot. And I sat there and I said, And I wanted to, but God said, you're going to do what I do. You're going to sit and be still. Because see, some of us got to really start looking at the crowds that we keep. Birds of a feather, the word says, flock together. He said, you're going to sit and be still. And you're going to see how this person of God handles this situation. I sat there. Everybody pulled out their card or their cash to pay for their bill. The waiter took up everything. And the person that received no bill walked out of the door. Now, someone would turn around and say, oh, Tab, that was the favor of God that was on his life. But it's being someone that works in human resources, that used to do human resources for the restaurant industry. What I know is that there's this process called reconciliation, where the tickets have to be reconciled against the transactions that go into the cash register. And as I looked at it, I said, this person that served about 10 plus deep of us, served us in excellence, is going to have to give an account. Some would say it's his fault. He should have, checked the tickets. He should have double checked to make sure. And I said, yeah, as I'm just processing this thing in my head, that could have been the case. But when you're a person of integrity, do you not say, hold on, this is my bill. You forgot to give me my bill. I've eaten the food. I've taken of the drink. I've enjoyed the establishment. You forgot to give me my bill to pay for what I've taken. And I watched, and y'all, my spirit dropped. And I said, God, why did you allow me to see this? He said, because I want you to know that it happens even in the house of the Lord. See, the world will cause us to think that it's only those that are out there that are sinful, lawless, and that lack integrity. The world will get in our minds and have us to be judgmental when we see a spot, a blemish, a speck in our brother's eye. The world will cause us to do this thing. And what happens, Mother Rachel, is we'll forget to check our own eye and say, God, is it me? And what happens is this common practice of manipulation, this common practice of bending the rules, this common practice of editing and doing the cheat codes, because becomes so common that you do it without even thinking. And you do it in front of a witness of believers. That's why in this day and time, people are asking and scrutinizing, well, why do they have the jet? And why do they have the cars? And why do they live this way? And let's audit the taxes, not only of the politicians, but now let's audit the taxes of those that are of the household of faith. That's why in this day of time, the scandals aren't just on, the reality shows, but now they're knocking on the doors of the household of faith. Was that your husband that you were with? Was that your wife, preacher, teacher, apostle, bishop, evangelist, man, woman of God? Did you borrow something that was not yours and got caught? That's why it's so easy to sit before a panel and not only confess, well, what is the definition of sin? Sin is as lawlessness. And to turn right back around and go into the world and practice the opposite of what you preach. None of us are exempt from the tricks and the schemes of the enemy. Whether you got a clergy collar, a degree, titles, letters behind or in front of your name. Whether you've been in church every day of your life since you were baptized or you're the first time in as a new believer, none of us are exempt. And it's so easy to look for the cheat codes. It's so easy to borrow what's not ours and think it's okay. It's so easy to make it a common practice of, I'm just going to say what I need to say to pass this test. And then when you lose your job because of it, when it impacts your relationship and your marriage because of it, you're praying, God, how did I end up here? Because it became a common practice. And the word of the Lord was sent today to remind us, not you, not just me, but us. We're in this thing together because I'm not exempt. He said, every time you popped a tag off, you showed me you had integrity. Every time you looked at the tag and said, ooh, this thing is above my budget right here. And back in the day, I would wear it and take it back. But you've learned to leave it in the store. You practiced integrity. You learned to be patient until you could afford it. He said, every time you did this, I looked down from the heavens and said, oh, that's Kevin right there. Patience. Oh, Lawana right there. She's putting in the work. She rolled up her sleeve and said, no, I'm not going to manipulate this thing. I'm going to pass this test today. Oh, he looked down and he said, oh, Yvette, integrity you're walking in. Oh, every single day. And I say this to you this morning because there's a scripture in the Bible that says, don't abuse your Christian liberty. I don't want us to get into this place where because we've gotten a little bit further than where we were, we forget that the tricks of the enemy are still trying to trick us, still trying to make us sin, and still trying to make us bend the codes and bend the rules. Every day we've got to be on our game. Every day we've got to be diligent. Every day we've got to try the Spirit by the Spirit. Every day we've got to say, wait a minute, is this right or is this wrong? Sometimes we make it deeper than what it is. It comes down to, is it right or is it wrong? Every day we got to ask ourselves, going back to that old thing that reminded me of it the other day, what would Jesus do? Every day we've got to pause before it comes out of our mouth and say, God, is this all right? Every day, Sister Rosalind, we've got to say, wait a minute, what's the impact of my actions? Every day. Because what will happen is we'll find ourselves praying and distraught and trying to understand, well, why did this happen to me? And I don't want us to be the one where God says, well, your tricking finally caught up to you. Because you will reap what you sow. Your bending the rules finally caught up to you. And in case of an emergency, you won't even know how to back up. And you're going to find yourself up on a curve. And folks are coming at you. You've got to pass the test. So don't despise the test of life. It's a preparation thing. I want to leave you with this. My son called me, Christopher called me, my middle son, this station in Texas. Y'all keep him in your prayers there. He's on standby to find out if he's going to be deployed. And Chris called me. They've been going through all of this training. He called me this morning. I said, hey, baby, I said, what's going on? It's Tuesday. Mama don't answer the phone on Tuesday mornings. I'm studying for the word of the Lord. But that's my child. I said, what you need, honey? What you need? He said, Mama, my heart dropped down to my feet this morning. I said, what happened, Chris? He said, I'll tell you this real quick. He said, this alarm went cross on our phone. He said it went cross on our phone this morning and it said break, break. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, it was break, break. He said, and I can't tell you the rest of it, but the rest of it was telling us to get information. It was telling us the things that we needed to get. It's stuff we've been practicing. And what that break, break meant was go gather your stuff. You got minutes to go get your stuff and be in formation because you're getting ready to be deployed right here, right now. Time to go. He said, and mama, that thing came across the phone and all of us was getting up and we was grabbing our stuff and getting our gear. He said, and I don't have time to call nobody. He said, and my heart was racing. He said, and it felt like it was dropping to my feet and we were out there on formation. He said, and we were listening to the sergeant go through everything. He said, and I'm standing there. He's like, mama, and my life was just flashing before my eyes. He said, I know what I signed up for. He said, but I was standing there saying, is this real? Am I really about to go to war? He said, and then they finally told us it was only a test. I said, Chris, why would they do that? He said, mama, because we got to be prepared. Ooh. As his mother, Mother Rachel, I sat on the other end of that call, and as he's telling me this, my heart is doing what his heart has done. And I understand what he's doing, and I hear, thank you for your service. I hear it. But I'm like, wait a minute, God. My child is possibly getting ready to go join and fight for a war. He ain't even 30 yet. And not only my child, but how many other sons and daughters and husbands and wives. And I said, whoa, God, it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming, I got to tell you. It was overwhelming. But Chris was composed. He said, Mom, he said, I take these tests more seriously now. I take drill more seriously now. I take the practice and the preparation and the process more seriously now. Because if we get that thing on our phone again that says break, break, it may not be a test. And some of you, God sent me to tell you this morning, it's only a test. Oh, God, I know you think this is the thing that's going to take you out, but he's just getting you prepared because the enemy continues to come at us, but he's saying it's only a test. I know you wanting to go back into bending some rules and to compromising and letting them slip on in the midnight hour, but God says, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's only a test. See, I want to be able to stand before God and say, God, look at my daughter Rihanna down there. She put in the work. She's ready for it. I want to be able to look and say, oh, I need you to look at Broderick over there. He not only put in the work, but he was patient and waited for it. Roderick just got back. He was patient and waited for it. I want to be able to look and say, look at Camden Love over there, right there, right there, right there. Integrity, walking in it, not compromising to the flesh and not getting overwhelmed and not getting frustrated and not getting exhausted and not getting tired because we don't have time in this season. We've got to be ready when the God says break, break to go get what you need to get. When God says break, break to go do what you need to do. You may not have time to call on mama, daddy, auntie, uncle, sister, or friend. You may not have time to drop to your knees and get a quick prayer in. You may not have time. You got to stay ready in this season. You got to be ready because the enemy is coming. But I want you to be able to stand in formation and say, I'm a part of the army of the Lord. And I want you to know that I put in the work for this. I've cried too many tears. I've put in the work for this. I've had too many sleepless nights. I've put in the work for this. I've sacrificed and I've done the things that I didn't think I could do. I took the test and I passed and I stand in formation, ready to go. Oh, you got to be able to stand ready to go. Oh, ready to go. And some of you, you're rushing the process and you're God saying, God, why don't you go ahead and do it? And why don't you go ahead and fix it? And why don't you go ahead and move it? And he says, I need you to know how to be patient. I need you to know how to stand in formation and be patient until I tell you the test is over. I need you not to lose your mind, Mary, in the calm and in the middle of the storm. I need you to know how to be able to stand vigilant and be patient, looking unto the hills from whence coming your help, all knowing that all of your help comes from the Lord. I need you to know how to be patient. I need you to know, God says, how to be patient. Oh, be patient. I can't help but think about this story in the Bible where God was sending the help. He gave the answer to the angel. He was sending the help. And the person was all, God, where are you at? And God, did you hear me? And God must have forgot about me. And the angel finally showed up and said, my apologies, my bad. I was on my way to you to let you know that God's got it. I was on my way to let you know that God has got you. I was on my way to let you know that this thing is over. I was on my way to let you know that the job was getting restored. I was on my way to let you know that you've been healed of this illness and this sickness and disease. I was on my way to let you know that your heart was getting ready to get mended. I was on my way to let you know that the children were going to get in order. I was on my way to let you know that it was going to be all right, that trouble don't last always, but I got held up. I got held up by the enemy. And while you was over there and you was doing what you doing, I was fighting the enemy. I was letting him know that, no, that's a child of God. I've been sent to fight on their behalf, and no weapon formed against them will be able to prosper. I was kicking, and I was hitting, and I was slinging, and I was doing what I needed to do. I took out the enemy so that I could get to you, to just let you know. So when you're going through, I need you to learn how to be patient. Oh, God, I know that you're sending help. God, I know that you didn't forget about me. God, I know that you've got my back. God, I know that you're going to work this thing out. God, I know it's working for my good. God, I know that you love me and you never forsake me. God, I know that you are on my side. So I'm being patient while I'm waiting. Oh God, I'm being patient, standing in formation while I'm waiting. And God, no matter what comes at me, that old man still rests inside of me. That old man will whisper and say, psst, 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 Tab, come here, Tab. Come here, Tab. You don't have to study. You don't have to study. You don't have to put all that work in. I got some cheat codes for you. You don't have to do all of that. I know the enemy is Tab. Pastor Tab. You know he's a forgiving God. Go on and make the call. He gonna forgive you in the morning. Everybody has needs that they gotta get taken care of, Tab. It's all right. Go on and make the call. Tab. I know. But you know, if you don't adjust these numbers, Tab, when you file your taxes, you're gonna have to cut a check. So just change that number to this number. Ain't nobody gonna know. How often do you get audited anyway? They won't know. But God knows. We've got to get to this place where we say, Denise, but God knows. And the reason, I know people are trying to figure out, Mandy done buried multiple people back to back in the last few days. Mandy, I've been praying for you. I've been sending you messages to check on you. Denise put it in the chat the other day. I lost my job today. And I didn't know, and she didn't know that particular day we did that Bible trivia thing, and she won $150 because she got one question right, and turned around and won $150 because she got another. I sent her $300 on that day. She earned it. She had put in the work. She knew the scriptures. I didn't know that was going to take place. She didn't know it was going to take place, but God knew. He knew that Mandy needed to be connected to some people that would say, hey, you hadn't been here. And I ain't judging you because you're absent. I'm checking on you. What's going on? That just would love you doing bereavement and understand that sometimes you just need a break. Whew. I'll be honest. Luana, I'm still trying to figure out, God, what are you doing through this e-church? What are you doing? And today he asked me, he said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, Mary, what I want you to do, God, is I want you to use this e-church to remind people that there is still a reward for putting in work. God, I want you to use this e-church to remind people that you're not just a number in a head count, a person that files in on a roll, that we look for you. And I read the stuff in this chat because I want to know where you're at and what you need and how can I be praying for you. I want to have this e-church, God, so that we can, Rihanna, you just said it, give people hope to know that this thing, it ain't easy. I wish I could say, God, that being a believer is easy, but the truth of the matter is, it's not. We got to put faith in something that we don't see all the time. We got to be able to confess that you are good when everything feels hard and wrong and bad. God, it's hard sometimes. But all the benefits, I wouldn't change it for anything in this world because I've been out there. And I remember how it felt. The guilt and the shame of the devil holding this thing over my head of my common practice and commitment to bend the rules. And I just want to tell them that there is a place. There is a place that will say, let's talk about it. Let's not try to be who can lose an eyelash on camera. Y'all see that lash? Let's try not to be who we are not. Oh, I put another one in right there. Let's not try to be who we're not. But let's be fully who we are. We are children of God. We're children of God. And because of that, we don't have to cheat the system. Because God has taught us how to beat the system. If you're listening to this message, if you are not a believer, I encourage you, just give it a try. Some of you are watching and you're going to come across somebody today and they're not a believer. Would you encourage them to just give it a try? Invite them. Tell them to come on over here. Just log in on a Tuesday or Thursday. Just give it a try. Somebody is bending some rules right now and they're manipulating something. And they are in your inner circle. And God is saying, is this you? Is this what you do? Do birds of a feather flock together? Is this you? Have some integrity. Do better. Don't judge, because it's so easy. But when you know better, God says, I really expect for you to do better. Oh, God. Y'all, I love you. And I just want you to know that there is still a beauty in being able to say, I rolled up my sleeves and I put in the work. There is still a joy, Candy Love, that we can have in saying, you know what? I was patient and I've learned how to wait on the Lord. Don't mean it feel good, but I'm learning how to be patient and wait on the Lord. I don't get all in my emotions thinking that this is about to be the end. No, God has always got my back. I'm waiting on the Lord. And I've learned how to have integrity. I can't be everywhere. I can't do everything. I can't say everything. I can't be a part of everything. And it's not that I'm perfect and I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to be better. And integrity won't allow me to do some of the things that I used to do. And Jesse, here's the thing. Because we're not perfect, we're able to come together and say, whew, and he's still working on me. Every day when I really look at it, he shows me, all right, girl, you're being a little lazy. Roll up them sleeves. Stop whining. Stop looking for a work around. Put in the work. Every day he shows me something where he can say, man, all right now, all right, be patient. You're getting a little impatient. I didn't forget about you. Be patient. I'm coming. I got you. Every day he gives me an example of, is that right? Would I be happy with that? Now, how did that make you feel? Integrity. Integrity. It still counts for something. Every day, we're striving towards the mark of the high calling in Christ Jesus. So, y'all, I thank you for coming and sharing this time. I thank you for coming to a place in life where you can look at the naysayers, the haters, the jealous, the envious that are saying, how did you get there? And how do you have this? And, well, Barry, how you still standing? And why are you driving that? And how you able to afford that? And, well, why you was able to go here? And how? It's because I've learned to stop cheating the system. These are the benefits, Kevin, when you beat the system. I pray y'all got something out of this word today. Now I gotta go. I got a whole lash. You see, this is truth in Jesus. Could I be transparent? I got a whole lash that belong up in here somewhere. I got to go put my lash back in. Individuals, honey, individuals. I pray that you got something out of this word, honey. You got to learn how to cry and laugh and keep on going. All right? Get something out of this word today. And to God be the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Y'all, I love you. Mwah! Sweet kisses from this heart straight to yours. Have an amazing day. And the Lord willing, next Thursday, 2 more days, we're going to come together and see what God has to say. And Renata, we're not done with our celebration. Today, God said, hold on. I need you to pause for a minute. I need you to do some teaching on today. But we're still celebrating this 4-year anniversary all month long. Bye, y'all.